Hello, Sideways 8 again. Last video, I was talking about what artifact haze and sage erasure is. Now, in the last couple videos, I was trying to demonstrate that in many ideas, they follow a very specific formula. They get you sick on purpose, and then when you show symptoms of sickness, that you are healthy. They try to make you think backwards and then tell you it's rational. They try to get you to behave immorally and tell you it's justified. Now, what happens when you make people ill systematically? What ends up happening is you get someone who has no strengths whatsoever, no inner strength, and they end up becoming insane. Ever seen a feminazi? That's a good example. They get to the point where they're so emotionally imbalanced that they're now calling to have men's balls chopped off. Ever seen a fundamental Christian? I know a couple of our relatives, they are messed up. They want to kill all homosexuals. You ever seen the scene on the news, the jihadis blow themselves up? That's a result of being mentally ill. All these ideals that these people adhere to are designed to systematically destroy the person and make them pathologically sick. Now, what happens when you make someone pathologically sick? Well, first, they become really abusive themselves. Abused become the abusers. And since they no longer have control, then they can over themselves, they seek control of their environment. So they seek control over others. We can see this in forms of political correctness, and we can see this in forms of microaggressions. We can see this in forms of violence, and we can see this in forms of censorship. A person who is well within themselves would not feel the need to have anything censored. Not at all. They would be able to handle doubt and chaos in a healthy manner. A healthy person can deal with uncertainty. An unhealthy person, due to the chaos within, needs certainty. And that's why they censorship, that's why they dox people, and that's why they're out to hurt people. So now that they need to control something, that comes in two ways. Either they, manipulate others into being sick like them and adopt their ideology so they can spread the pathos, or they depend on a leader to do it for them. Then what happens is you end up having a structure. You having a no longer a set of equal people, but you have a person that's on top and a group of people at the bottom. The person no longer is equal now. It's no longer democratic. It's now becoming authoritarian. And then what happens is they try to spread the ideology. And then what happens when someone's at the top? They start acting in ways that are contradictory to the morals. Then they start becoming corrupt. What happens to governments that can become corrupt? They fall apart. Take a look at Venezuela. North Korea, for all its power and strength and control over people, is falling apart because of corruption. And the corruption comes from that. And then when you create a system of inequality, it repeats itself. In Islam, you got the top guy, which is the caliphate. Then you got the princes who are able to whore and all that good stuff, even if they're not supposed to. Then you got the men who beat their wives. And then you got the women who are treated well. And then you got the atheist and the polytheist. And anyone who doesn't agree with, what happens? They get annihilated. And they actually have a systematic law designed to be abusive to people. So now you're generating more abuse. Now what happens when someone's so mentally unstable? What do? They no longer accept blame. They point fingers to other people. You got a whole group of that's insane. So who are they going to point fingers to? Anyone they can. When they're emotionally unstable, they're now nasty. So they're going to start picking fights with people. What if there's no more people to pick fights with? Well, then what happens is it ends up splitting, and then you have cycles of schism, split, and endless cycles of genocide and annihilation. You have more and more trauma. It perpetuates itself. And the more trauma it gets, the more totalitarian and authoritarian the government gets, the more hellish society becomes, and then the more corrupt things are, the less things are based on merit, and the more people start discriminating themselves on bullshit reasons, and the more they become warped in their thinking. They start caring more about bullshit stuff like don't rape me bracelets and safe spaces, or in Islam they care more if you can have sex with jinn or not versus actually ensuring that everyone in your country has a good college education. They start, insane people start prioritizing insignificant, petty, stupid-ass bullshit at the expense of everything else. And then nothing gets done and things fall apart. And then when things get in chaos, you start the whole cycle again. It just seems that everything that the West is trying to correct through its ideologies has at its root emotional dysfunction. I know this because I grew up in a dysfunctional home. I see this behavior across the board. I studied a little bit more about cults and brainwashing, and that is the goal. The goal is to make you chase after unhappiness, to make you chase after misery. And what has happened is that this has erased all ideas. Like I said in my last video, we are seeing this with the social justice warriors, where they are implementing logic where it basically sums up: fire is cold, water is dry, gravity doesn't exist. That's the kind of logic they're thinking. They say they're compassionate and they behave in very horrible ways. And when someone is truly compassionate, they're treated as a racist. It's the doublethink formula. So, the problem is, all ideas share this premise of the doublethink formula to a large degree. Everything you do and think and know of has this formula. And you know this because we have a government, we have intolerance, we have misery, we have war. All these things that you find detestable is a result of, because it's a sign and a symptom of these patterns in our collective psyche. And reason why I bring this up is it seems that the SJWs want a collectivist, authoritarian, or totalitarian form of government. They're creating a culture where, once it's completely altered, will create and thus project the government they desire or think they're desiring. And it will become hell. And so if you create a government that's going to end up being structured like North Korea or like Stalin Russia, and I already said it creates a hierarchy in practice where people get discriminated against because it shares the same structure as Islam and Christianity and all these other things. What happens? You have intolerance. You're institutionalizing abuse, psychological abuse. If you think abusing people is wrong and you abuse people who are minorities sexually or skin color, you are being racist. This is what's happening. These people who think they're ending racism are what they're really doing is installing an ideology that has the doublethink premise embedded into everything it does, designed to make you insane, which, if you observe, will end up creating the very opposite thing they're trying to do. How is that ending racism? No, that is racism. They are taking part of the artificial haze. They're taking part of the sage erasure. They are racists, according to this view.